Hey guys, welcome to another Cold and Dark. This time we're taking a baby step up from the 152 and we are looking at the Cessna 172. We are right now just at the very start of a free flight and we are at Telluride in Colorado. As is going to be the theme with these videos, the goal is to use no keyboard and no mouse. But we do have to use something. So today I am using Honeycomb Alpha Yoke, the Honeycomb Bravo Throttle, using the Tobii eye tracker for moving the in-game camera around with my head. I will be using the Stream Dock by VSD inside, and I will be using the Xbox game controller again, simply for the external aircraft moment. Once we're in the aircraft, I won't be using the controller. So let's hit ready to fly, and off we go. Alright, we are outside of our 172 Skyhawk. Beautiful. With these guys, we have 4 things to do before we are ready to fly. We're going to remove the engine covers. We're going to remove the static port cover. We're going to remove the pitot cover. And we're going to remove the chocks. With those removed, we are ready to fly. So let's... Alright, so we are in our Cessna. We are ready to do the... Before starting the engine, we got to do some checks, make sure things are good before we proceed. Let's get started. Parking brake needs to be set. I have this bound to the 6th button on the Bravo throttle. And basically, as a matter of course, before I start in an aircraft, I always have this as the only thing that's set so that the parking brake is set, but we can see if we turn that on and off, that we adjust the parking brake accordingly. But we've got the parking brake is set. Electronic equipment is all off. Avionics Master Bus 1 and 2 is off. Our fuel selector valve needs to be set to both. This is something that catches a lot of people out. We'll talk about that in a minute. It defaults to pointing to the left. It's that little gauge right at the bottom. I have this mapped to a push button on the Stream Dock, which sets it into the both position. The last thing we need to do is our fuel shut-off valve needs to be open. The fuel valve is mapped to the 3rd button on the Bravo, and if I push that, our fuel valve is now open. Without that, we're not going to get any fuel into the engine, and it's probably not going to start very well. Our throttle wants to be open about 1/4 inch. We got that there. You just saw the fuel mixture jump in. I'm going to pull that back because that needs to be set right now to in a cutoff position. Next, we set the standby battery into ARM mode. There is a process of testing it. I'm going to skip the testing process. I don't have that properly mapped, but in order to set the standby battery, that's button 1 on the Bravo throttle, and that brings our avionics to life. I guess the pilot avionics are running off of that battery. Okay, next up, we set the master switch, alternator and battery on. That's the 2 red buttons on the Honeycomb yoke. So they are now set in. We set our beacon light on. Actually, it already was on, so I didn't have that set in the proper place. Beacon light is now on. Okay, next we're going to do a... we're going to assume that it's cold outside. It's not unreasonable to assume that. Although it's actually 11 degrees Celsius in the outside air temperature, according to the aircraft. So we're going to skip the cold start. I figured it was going to be colder. But I think we could probably skip that at 11C. So, at this point, we need to start the engine. Well, it wasn't the most convincing start. I'll be the first to admit, I don't know if maybe I should have done the fuel priming. But our engine is happily turning over. We need to check the oil pressure. Right now it is in the green. That's that second dial right there. That's good. We need to set our navigation lights. It actually says as required, but I'm just going to go ahead and turn them on. And the Avionics Master bus 1 and 2 needs to be set as on. That's these two white switches. Now, if you have had issues mapping these two white switches on your Honeycomb yoke or any other yoke, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. That is something that required a little extra effort on this one. But we are now set in terms of the engine being started. Now, there's a series of additional things that are done prior to takeoff, including checking the flight controls, setting the barometer and the altimeter, which we aren't going to do, and getting the mixture ready for takeoff. We would also set some additional lights, but we're not going to go through that for now. We have done a cold and dark start on a Cessna 172. I'm just going to go ahead and turn the engine off. I'm going to disable the head tracker for a second. I'm going to go take a closer look at the fuel selector switch, and I want to talk about that for just a second. So that's this switch down here, and right now we have it set to both. I'm using the mouse for demonstration purposes to highlight this. So by default, when you start the game, the Cessna 172 defaults this selector to the left fuel tank. This has probably caught out, well, this caught me out, and I'm gathering it's caught a lot of people out when you first tried a longer flight in the 172 in career mode, because halfway through that flight, when you should have had plenty of fuel left, you found the engine sputtering to a stop, and you didn't know why. This was the reason. It can be left stuck in a left position, and that's fine. It will work, but you only draw in fuel out of one of them. Because there's three states to this, where you can have this dial either pointing to the left, you can have it pointing to both fuel tanks, or you can have it pointing to the right fuel tank. A simple on-off switch, which is the only thing you get with the Honeycomb devices, means you can sensibly map the functionality of this in a way that makes sense, because mapping three states of a switch, it just doesn't work well with two switches. What do you do when they're both on? What do you do when they're both off? What do you do when either one is on and the other is off? It becomes a nightmare. So for this, I love the Stream Dock, just having three push buttons where I can set it to left, right, or both based on buttons. And I don't need to look. As part of the, this is also just inconveniently located out the way where I've got to crane my head down. I can just mash fuel tank both and know that it's set in the right place. The next thing I want to talk about is these two white buttons. The Avionics Master Bus 1, Avionics Master Bus 2. Looking at the Honeycomb Alpha, looking at the main buttons that you have on a Cessna 172, this should be a no-brainer. This should just work. But for whatever reason, and I believe this is a problem that got introduced with Flight Simulator 2024, so this wasn't a problem on 2020, but on the 2024 version it is a problem. These two white buttons, they don't map. And I went through countless variations before I realized they were never going to map. That the whatever option you need to be able to set it to in the settings doesn't work. And for that, I've come to rely on a third-party piece of software that did have a one-time purchase price, or it was $20 or thereabouts, and it's called SPAD.neXt. I don't know what the origin of that name is, but essentially it gives you the ability to map all of these controls and figure out basically exactly what happens when a switch on the aircraft is pushed, you can then like figure out exactly what that hook on Flight Simulator is. I'm not going to go into the weeds, but there's all these different types of hooks. But you can identify them using developer mode and then set them on, bind them through SPAD.neXt. I will share in the not in the comments, I will share in the description what I have these bound to. Unfortunately, I found, because like while I haven't done the video yet, I have got other aircraft sort of fully bound for cold and dark flight, and I have found that basically almost all of them have some buttons that just don't map. And so if you're serious about setting up this kind of configuration where you can do a cold and dark on any aircraft and not run into problems, then unfortunately you are going to need a utility like SPAD.neXt, but it seems to be pretty reliable for me. So that's what I'm using. It's running in the background right now, so as I push these white buttons on, off, either one, it does the job. So that is a cold and dark start in the Cessna 172. I hope that was useful for you guys. I will include all the bindings I'm using down in the description. If you guys have got anything else that you've found useful to bind as part of the assessing the pre-flight checklist, I'd love to hear what you've got. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you. Bye. Well, that's a wrap on that one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. And remember, I'm not actually a pilot. I'm just a dumbass with a flight simulator. Catch you on the next one.